Hello and welcome to another episode of the Property Lifestyle Mastery podcast. I'm Jackie Tomes, and on this show we are talking about the highs, the lows and the lessons of doing over £17 million worth of deals and creating the holiday every 6 weeks lifestyle. Everything from big picture strategy right down to practical solutions. And on today's episode we are delving into environment and how if you change your environment and master that, you can actually change your life. So it's myself and Dom today having a conversation that leads down to all kinds of avenues around peak performance, how to balance peak performance and productivity whilst also maximising rest and enjoyment along the way, and how environment in all of its different forms is so important as part of that. So without further ado, here is Change Your Environment, Change Your Life. Hello Dom.
Hello Jackie.
Here we are, another day, another podcast episode, and we're talking today about environment, which we've just been having a little pre-chat about, and you just got so much to cover on this topic. So tell us, what are we talking about here when it comes to environment, and why is it important?
Yeah, so environment is a catch-all word for the surroundings that we find ourselves in or put ourselves in. It is the biggest factor among the 5 that I like to talk about. So I talk about vision, which we've done before. I talk about knowledge and skills, which we obviously need to learn around property, for example. We talk about mindset. We talk about habits. But environment is the one that makes the biggest difference to people, because you're the average of the people that you surround yourself with, but you're massively impacted by what's around you. So if I was to put you in prison right now, you'd get pretty damn depressed. You'd be very frightened. There'd be a lot of anger going on around you, and you wouldn't be the person you are today because of the environment. At the other extreme of prison, that maybe there's billionaires who hang out with other billionaires in Monte Carlo or wherever it might be, and they're eating the loveliest foods. They've got waiter service. They've got beautiful sunshine and luxury and massages, and the ability to do business with other people around them who are also at that level. So environment has the biggest impact on who you become. We're incredibly lucky. We're born into a country which is relatively developed, and we've got sanitation and education and all those other things that we kind of take for granted. It's a big topic, but it's the most impactful one to get right and deliberately create your environment like you've done. I mean, you're in beautiful South Africa at the moment, and that is a chosen environment that you wanted to be in. And if you're not proactively creating that environment, then by default someone else is, or you're just reacting to it, and it's not serving you in the same way that a proactive environment could. So there's a little spiel to start us off, but is the most important one to get right. So, you're a perfect example of someone who creates their environment. You're in South Africa at the moment. You've got the motorhome that allows you to just travel around in, and you love travel. You get to go skiing. You make that for yourself. So tell me, at what point did you decide, right, I'm going to do this and make my environment so important to me? And what does it give you as well?
Yeah, well, it's funny, isn't it? Because I almost think we were very intentional. Obviously writing the book at the moment, and it's making me reflect on the exact timeline of how everything kind of happened and unfolded. But I think 2015, 2016 was when we started being like, okay, we actually want to go on a lot of holidays. That was the reason why we started. As you've been saying, that you do the value sessions with our mentees, and hearing that travel is a big motivator for a lot of people. We were no different. That was our reason for investing in property in the first place. And then we totally lost sight of that whilst we were building the business and started working 24/7, it felt like. And working with a business coach made us, and that was Elliot Kay. Some of you may know him. He got us to realize, holidays are actually really important to us. We're not doing any holidays anymore. We've got to change that. And that's when Dave and I started, holiday every 6 weeks became an idea that we wanted to make a reality. And we started to intentionally try and make the time for that to happen, which did subsequently happen. And I guess, that is then kind of evolved to a much more free life in lots of different locations. And how much we have personally evolved and the businesses have grown, particularly over the last 3 years. I haven't done it through the lens that you would have done it, because you're very
clear in these different areas. It's kind of like it has been an environment thing, but we hadn't really kind of realized how important that was. And that for us disconnecting from the UK, so I'd say the UK for me is a particular environment,
Yes.
particular vibe, particular messaging. Yes, we are incredibly privileged in the UK, but you wouldn't feel that way necessarily if you heard how much everyone moans.
Yeah.
Not everyone, like a lot of people. And for us being able to disconnect from that environment and experience lots of different places, lots of different sunsets, lots of different houses and beaches and places, it opens your mind to possibilities that you couldn't probably see before.
Yes. Also, it makes me think environment isn't just our surroundings, it's also the situation that we either put ourselves in or find ourselves in. So you just mentioned, you've just been writing a book. You had a time frame in which you had to get it done by. And if you didn't have that time frame, then you wouldn't have got it done to the same degree. We've got the Olympics in the summer coming up at the moment. Those athletes have to be at their best, performing at their best for the Olympics. Otherwise, they've got to wait another 4 years, or they might miss out, completely. So creating a time frame or a situation that demands the best of you is absolutely, it makes the biggest difference. When people commit to that goal, like you said, of having a holiday every 6 weeks, that commitment forces the situation to go, okay, I've got to step up now. People like Greta Thunberg, she protested outside her school for ages. The press got wind of it. She had to step up and start public speaking. Eventually, it led her to touring around the world and speaking in front of the UN in front of billions of people who now know her. And it was that environment that required her to become a public speaker, someone who would step up and understanding how to, do it in front of the press. And impress people with her articulation and her passion for what she stood for. So by deliberately putting yourself in situations that demand you to be your best, actually that can be a great forcing function to get what you want. Same with the gym, you could go to the gym, do a workout, or you could go to a class. And then you get pushed way harder because there's the teacher.
That's so true. That's such good timing for me. Like it's rare that I go to classes these days, but we're in Franschhoek in South Africa at the moment for a month, and there's a place that does Pilates classes, and I've been doing Pilates 3 times a week since we've been here. Nice. And it's so true. It's like the hardest that I've pushed myself in a long time, and it's like it's a nice studio. Everyone else is suffering through it together. And like I've made so much progress in such a short space of time because that environment that it created and that accountability of me booking on and going. You're right. It just kind of, that time is a great forcing function. And obviously time blocking, you can do it for yourself, but you have to be really self-disciplined to say, I'm going to book something in with myself. I'm going to honor myself and do that thing, which is why having other people creates an environment, right?
100%. I mean, that's one of the biggest ones. As Jim Rohn a long time ago said, you're the average of your 5 closest friends. So the question is, do you level up that friendship and kind of elevate it, or do you bring it down? So it's good to ask yourself that question. But who you surround yourself with makes the biggest difference. If you want to step up in business, you need to surround yourself with people who are better than you, and where actually, if in a way, you're kind of learning the most from them rather than them learning from you, because then you're really pushing yourself and stepping up and learning and growing. And that's why it's so good to have a mentor and be part of a mastermind or other people who are in the same field as you, because then they cheer you along. They're your biggest cheerleaders. That you're getting the right advice, you're getting feedback. It's that growth mindset of wanting to learn from other people and it impacting you, and you realizing, they can do it, I can do it too. And just by being surrounded by them and talking about it the whole time and learning from each other, that's when you really step up as well. A lot of people try and do it on their own, but it's just so difficult. Putting yourself in the right environment of the right people with the right mentors is where you're going to level up your business to another level.
Yeah, it's true. And it's also like what you're putting into your mind, right? Like, how does that fit into environment? Because it's like books, audio books, podcasts, like that's creating your environment. It's like it's internal and external kind of landscape. That's for me, if I fall out the habit of reading a good book, I fall into a worse state of mind, which then makes me make worse decisions. So to have a good book that gets me, like, I'm just programming my brain to think helpful thoughts that are going to help me to move in the direction that I want to go. So yeah, would you count books and reading and that as like part of your environment as well?
100%. I mean, one way to think of it is we experience our environment through our senses, right? So what we're hearing is really important. So that's why I've given up listening to the news, because that's all negative words and programming, and frankly scaring the hell out of me about how the planet is going. So making sure that I'm not listening to negative things and information like that. So the news, what you hear, what you read, absolutely. The books, the magazines, the TV that you watch. I mean, I've given up watching anything that isn't inspiring and educational and funny, and put stuff that actually puts me in a good mood. Even films now, if they're too violent or just too many atrocities, I can't hack it.
With you.
I don't want it.
I basically will only now watch a Netflix series if it has the word good in the title. The Good Doctor, The Good Wife. Like, it's got a I'm with you. Like, it just drags you down, right? Like, I find it really stressful, and then that just again puts you in a worse decision-making mode, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And that time that you give yourself to decompress, to stop thinking, that's also environmental too. So both meditate on a regular basis. We do it in group meditation with our mentoring group, and that has a massive impact when everyone is aligned and effectively meditating at the same time. That's when magic can happen and all sorts of things. So deliberately putting yourself in a situation where you can relax properly, whether it's having a bath or going for a massage or meditating, but as a group or as an individual, all of those things have a big influence on who you are and who you become and how you think and how you feel. So what you see, all of those things, all your senses, your five senses, that's environmental. So that leads me on to the next point, which is actually we experience the world through our taste as well, right? It's one of the and our digestion, one of the senses. And so what you put into your body has a massive impact on your energy. And of course, we're batteries, aren't we? We expend energy during the day and we recover it at night. But also the other thing that helps us recover is nutrition and hydration, all those good things. So tell me, what have you changed in your environment internally, in your gut, in the last few years that has had a big impact on you?
Oh, as sad as it is, the good wines are. We drink a lot less of the good wines, which, as we've had another episode on this. Yes, exactly. So being much more intentional about alcohol. I've recently, as many people that we're working with right now, I've been doing the Zoe. What do they call it? Zoe process, where you get they test your blood glucose, they test your poo sample, they tell you what you should be eating and food sequencing. That's been a real game changer for me in terms of like how I put together my meals. And that's made a really big difference in terms of like energy levels and satisfaction, and therefore not wanting to reach for like chocolate and stuff so easily. So that's been an intermittent fasting. I guess that's maybe a slightly different point. It's not necessarily what I'm putting in, but maybe sometimes it's what you don't put in.
Not putting in, exactly. Yeah. This is important. Yeah.
What about you, Dom?
So it's similar, right? I haven't done the Zoe yet, but you're inspiring me to try it out because I think I need to get clearer on what the good bacteria in my gut need. So intermittent fasting for the last 3 years has been an absolute game changer. I mean, that energy-wise, you think you eat less, you get more energy, you get less energy. But of course, the opposite is true. You actually get more energy. And that's partly because of how we grew up in the olden days with, we'd have to hunt in the winter and we'd eat meat and fat from the animals. And then in the summer, we would eat all the fruits and the vegetables that were there, but they were full of glucose, of course, or fructose, and that would cause our insulin to go up, and then we'd put on weight from the fruit and the sugars, and then we'd lose weight and effectively do intermittent fasting naturally in the winter when the food wasn't so plentiful. So intermittent fasting effectively is completely natural to how we evolved in the past, and I've found that is one of the biggest game changers when it comes to energy and weight management as well as sleep. I mean, it impacts your sleep, it impacts your energy, it impacts everything. So I think intermittent fasting is the biggest one, but I've yet to learn, and I enjoy the fact that I don't know it all when it comes to, I mean, there's always more to learn when it comes to learning about nutrition and what to put in my body and what is right for my body, because everyone is unique. Everyone's individual, and what works really well for dieting and losing weight and everything else for one person is not going to be the same for someone else. Everyone's got to find that.
You've got to be really tuned in, haven't you, to like how your body feels, which obviously that's kind of like what we talk about in many other episodes as well, just like becoming much more aware of yourself and how you're feeling and responding to that, because otherwise you're just listening to what everyone else is telling you to do, and you'll just tie yourself up in knots if you're trying to do what everyone else says. So just that what feels good for me and adjusting, and it's complex as a woman, right? Like our hormonal cycle through the month makes it, it's not just like this is what I'm going to eat. You've got to adjust through the months to be able to help you to have your best internal environment.
There we go. Exactly. Good. So where do we go from here then on environment? Because it includes all our senses. It includes the way we think and what we put into our minds, what we hear, what we read, the people we spend time with, the feedback that we get from our peers and from our mentors. Is there any bits that we're missing that we can think of?
I guess maybe when has it gone wrong for you when it comes to environment, or like any recent examples, or maybe particularly like what how did you spot that? What happened? Have you got any examples along those lines?
So I think a lot of people would be able to relate, but Christmas time is definitely an environmental situation that happens to us all each year. And we know we overeat. We all know we put on weight. We all know we feel lethargic. And then you have the January blues of, when there's no light, certainly in the UK, when there's no light and it's really cold and miserable, and it's just like, oh. So I think there's cyclical situations like that throughout the year. But then other times you just have a really bad night's sleep for whatever reason, whether it's stress, whether it's you're in a different bed because you're traveling somewhere, and that can have a massive impact on your energy the next day. So then it's having and putting in places, an environment that allows you to recover quickly. I think that's essential, to have a good sleep routine and hygiene, as they call it, so that you've got that proper darkness and ideally silence and good comfortable bed, but with ventilation and all the other stuff that allows you to have really good quality deep sleep to recover quickly. That is definitely an area that's important to get right.
I think it's never going to be perfect, right? All of this, like it's such a balance, and we're interacting with other people, we've got other commitments in life, like it's you can design the most, we all know what probably the ideal routine would be that would make us feel great, with a good amount of sleep, with the right nutrition, going for exercise, reading a good book, like we know, but it's hard to do all of that. And I think we're always going to be trying to find what's the right balance for us at any one time. And I think sometimes we push it too much. So I guess for me recently, like I'm an introvert. I don't get energy from when I'm with people. I get energy from being on my own. And so it's always a challenge to balance that. So the weekend just gone, we spent pretty much the whole weekend with different people, like really nice people who we really enjoy spending time with. And I basically got to Monday when I had we've got a lot going on at the moment, probably spinning more plates simultaneously than ever before, and it's like massively butting up against my perfectionist nature, and the beast of perfectionist wants to come out at various times. And yes, I am talking about myself. The beast wants to come out, and I got to Monday with like a whole load of things that I really wanted to get done to set me in good for the week, and I just got there and I was exhausted. Like I just was so tired. And the more I acknowledged it, I was like, in the past, I would have just pushed through. Like, I will get this stuff done. I'll make it happen. But actually, I'd mismanaged my energy. And so therefore, I have to, adjust accordingly. So in the end, I just completely surrendered to it and just was like, I'm just going to rest. I'm just going to reset where I should have been. And ultimately, come Tuesday, I was bounced back and it was much better. And that's the point of working for yourself and running your own business, right? It's I'm the boss of my life.
Yes.
If I don't want to work on Monday because I don't feel good, don't work on Monday. Right. But why do we find that so hard to do?
Yes, quite. But it's great that you did bounce back within a day, right? Most people that they effectively in a way choose not to have that ability to do that, and it takes them maybe a week or several days to bounce back because they haven't got
or you just keep ignoring it, right, until you get ill. You just no, I'm not tired, I'm going to push through. You ignore your body until it's screaming, and then you get the flu or you get a cold and you're wiped out for a week or 2 weeks because you just didn't take one solitary day to recuperate.
Yeah It's good also to be aware of even bigger factors. I know this is kind of going off the wall slightly here, but we recently had some amazing solar flares from the sun come towards the UK, no, the planet Earth, and have amazing aurora borealis, as I think it's called, amazing colours at night. But I know a lot of people from the stuff that I've been watching and reading have been impacted by that, energetically. And of course, we think we're separate. We think that maybe planets don't and other things don't affect us. But of course, the sun does affect us. We feel so much better when there's sunshine out there. But what are those solar flares that are huge amounts of radiation impact the planet? I mean, they're talking about the atmosphere being thinned slightly from these flares, and yeah, that's going to impact people too. So it's good to be aware that it's not just your immediate environment of internally what you eat and who you surround yourself with, but there's bigger factors too, of the sun in particular, but also the moon and even other planets, if you're into astrology as well, that impact us. So that's something else to be aware of for anyone who's interested. And the last point I'd like to go to is, if you want to change something and you find it really difficult, because willpower doesn't really work, your environment will always win. So when you're at a nice hotel and they've got those amazing breakfasts, it's like, how do you hold back? No, of course you don't. It's all there. It's like laid out. The same with, if you wanted to lose weight, don't have the not so good food, the unhealthy stuff in your house. If you haven't got it in your house, you can't eat it. So by changing that, by not being around those people who bring you down, by not spending time with your mother-in-law or whatever it is that doesn't, float your boat, you'll actually feel better. And because you're not in that environment of either those people or that food, you can't have it. And therefore, you don't have to rely on your willpower, which by the end of the day is pretty small anyway. And you're going to change yourself. So that's why it's so important to get and proactively create.
So interesting.
Your surroundings.
Yeah. It's making me think about how we run our mornings and because you create your environment by also where you put your attention. And I think how you run, for me, that particularly that first part of the day is when I'm, I've got up, I'm in a good zone, I get probably 9 or 10 o'clock, I'm in my I can, if I'm focused, I can do a day's worth of work in basically an hour. But how I get myself into that zone to be able to have a magic hour, yes. That's what they call it at Disneyland, when you get the hour in the park before everyone else is allowed in, by the way. So yeah, I love magic time. So the magic hour where you can just fly through all of that. If I don't set up my environment, I guess maybe this is where the willpower can help. My willpower is what I use to curate my environment in the lead up to being able to have magic hour.
Yes.
So not looking at my emails, not looking at my WhatsApp, my Teams, my social media, that is totally out of bounds ahead of magic hour. Because as soon as I go there, suddenly my environment is in whoever happens to have messaged me at that time, which is totally random. Who knows who's annoyed that day about something or other that's going to just suddenly be there. Yes. So getting into it with the right, reading a nice book, nice cup of coffee, good music, clear with my priorities, and you can hit magic hour. And that's only because that environment is crafted. I hadn't quite thought about it through that lens before.
And that's the most important. That's why we talk about having a great morning routine, because you're creating and crafting your environment. But yeah, it's at the end of the day, when you've used up the capacity of thinking so much, you've got around 30 to 70,000 conscious thoughts that you can have every day. This is why Steve Jobs always used to wear a black polo neck, because he didn't want to have to think about what to wear, because he's using up his decision-making ability in the morning. Why would you waste energy on that? You want to focus it on the most important tasks around, business and growing whatever it is you want to achieve. So yeah, craft your day and your week and your month and your quarter around that environment of rhythm, both in terms of mindset and your habits and everything else, and that is going to create a much better life. And just for a lot of people now, they work from home. I'm very fortunate. I've got an office in the garden, and it separates from home. And so whereas before I worked in the house, and it's very easy to just go and put on the washing or get distracted with lunch and not be as productive. Now, because it's an environment that's purely for work, I'm way more productive because my mind is in the right mindset when I'm in my office. And it's a beautiful office, and I've got sunshine on both sides, and I've got my garden, and it's just, all of that makes a big difference. So for the listeners, think carefully at what it is about your environment that you can change that's going to help you become more productive. And also start with some of the people that maybe you don't need to spend so much time with, who they bring you down, and start spending time with people who are going to lift you up and help you become more of who you want to be.
It's really nice. And I guess I would say for the listeners who have small homes and don't have, glamorous sheds in their garden that they can work from.
No shed.
I guess you've got to find other ways to be able to change that environment. Obviously, we spent a lot of time traveling around in a motorhome. We don't, where you work is where you eat and everything. Yes. So like, I don't know, I feel like I might have spoken about this before, but just like we use music a lot to change our environment. Right. So we have like different playlists that we have like when we're in a nice house with a nice bath, we have a bath soundtrack that we put on. Cool. And when we're in the motorhome, we'd like have a bath before bed with the shit ton of Epsom salts, and we put a soundtrack on before we go to bed in the bath. If we're in the motorhome, we put on the same soundtrack and we call it a sound bath instead. But it just like gets us into the I'm getting ready to go to sleep kind of the zone. Endel, I think we might have spoken about that before, it's like a soundscape app that you can download, Endel, and they have like different soundscapes for different environments. So they have a sleep one. So we overnight we put Endel on in the sleep soundtrack, and you can set it as an alarm at a particular time, and it wakes you up, and it's really nice, like just with music. Basically, it's amazing. Like it kind of goes. There's like a particular soundscape that kind of gets you down to sleep when you first put it on, and then it's kind of like almost like low lying, just almost you can't even hear it overnight, but it's still kind of just programmed the subconscious. And then as you come to wake up, it kind of shifts again and it wakes you up really naturally. Like that has been great for like getting us into like more the sleep zone. And then it's also got one that I really like. It's got like creative work or hard work or something that you can put on. And when I'm going to be in my magic hour in the morning, and I want to do like a Pomodoro timer for like 25 minutes, you can put 25 minutes on Endel. And again, that just gets me in the like focus creative task zone to get a lot of stuff done. So I think sound is, if you don't have the luxury of a large, accommodation, have yourself a little sound bath. It also works.
and it's similar but different. But Niche and Jazz, some of our clients, they would go to the coffee shop, and they would have 2 hours at the coffee shop. And because it was a 2-hour time period, and it was at the coffee shop, they got stuff done, and that time frame allowed them to be more productive, because they knew that was the time frame that they had to complete things by. So you don't have to have a lovely office. You can use different environments, and then that environment means that you're working, or you're relaxing, or you're getting ready for sleep, or you're whatever it might be. So I love that. That's a great example of the soundscapes and the baths. Cool.
Or also if you're in a motorhome, just drive to a new location. I think that is probably one of the reasons that we've really liked it, right? Like you can just never get bored of your environment, which for us has just been like an ability to not, I don't know, cling on and hold on to stuff in the same way and kind of get attached to things. Like when the environment is always changing, it makes it a lot easier for us to change, right? Like, and if we want to achieve things that we haven't achieved before, we're going to have to become a new version of ourselves to be able to do that. So therefore, like as much as possible, letting go of stuff that you've previously been attached to just makes that whole process a lot easier. And I think we've evolved so rapidly over the last few years, and that's partly been because we just have been constantly letting go of attachments. So maybe just throw out some stuff like Mary Kondo or whatever, just get rid of crap that you don't need anymore, get out and about, find new places, see new things. Like you just want to see the world through different lenses.
Yes, exactly. People love traveling, and the science behind it is basically because your mind is in a flow state. So it's mainly the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that's really active because you have to be present. Everything is new. And when everything is new, you haven't got attachments and judgments and other things going on of expectations of how life's going to be. Because you're present, you're in the now. And then when you're in the now, that's where happiness, joy reside. And that's why people really love to travel. But yeah, do that as a reward, do that as a matter of course. I think that makes a massive difference. And it's a great forcing function to bring out the best in you as well. So nice.
I think, doesn't Yvette Mallinson call that the rosé response? Just finding a way to feel great in the moment, but hopefully without rosé. You might need rosé right now, but maybe how can you create that rosé response wherever you are?
Yes, exactly.
So your biggest takeaway for people to take with them off the back of this conversation?
Biggest takeaway. So think of environment, not just as environment, but all your senses. So as you mentioned, the sound, the smells, even, I have incense, and so do you, and various other things that help with memory. Make sure your workstation is as productive as it can be for you, so that you can bring out your best work. And above all, surround yourself with people, because that energy of other people has the biggest impact on how you feel. And so get out and meet the right people, and put yourself in environments that force you to step up, because nothing will force you to step up like the environment will. Whether it's exercise, whether it's in business. When you force yourself to become better and go outside your comfort zone, that's when you grow the most, and you realize you can do things that you never thought you could do before.
Awesome. So what are your takeaways this week, and what are you going to do to shift your environment to help you get better, easier, more fun results? And if you really want to commit to this, check out our Property Business Breakthrough Retreat in September, 19th to the 23rd of September 2024, where it's 4 days completely out of your normal environment to be able to shift your perspective, and so that you can get yourself and your business to a new level of raising finance and doing more deals with so much more ease, because you're looking at yourself through a totally different perspective. So if you want a proper environment shift, come and hang out at a stunning villa in Italy with us during that time. You can check out all the details at property-strategy.com/PBB. Meanwhile, next week you're going to be joined by Dom and Dave, and they are talking about how actually really small changes can make very big differences as long as you keep doing them consistently. So they are talking about the transformative power of Kaizen to transform not only yourself but also your business. Really amazing episode coming up for you guys next week. So until then, have a great week ahead.